What if I told you that in just 1 year, we might witness the end of an entire basketball era? The last true point guard, the one they call the point god, just dropped a bombshell that has the entire NBA world holding its breath. Chris Paul, at 40 years old, has essentially announced his retirement timeline, and with it, the death of traditional point guard basketball as we know it. For 2 decades, Chris Paul has been the gold standard of what a point guard should be. While the game evolved around him, while analytics changed everything, while three-pointers became more valuable than gold, CP3 remained the constant, the floor general who could see 3 plays ahead and make passes that defied physics. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. Chris Paul isn't just retiring, he's taking an entire position with him. Today, we're diving deep into how the point guard position rose to legendary status, why it's dying a slow death, and how Chris Paul's career perfectly mirrors this incredible transformation. Let's rewind to May 6th, 1985, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. A kid named Christopher Emmanuel Paul was born, and basketball had no idea what was coming. Growing up in Louisville with his brother CJ, young Chris earned the nickname CP3 because he, his father, and his brother all shared the same initials. It was destiny written in basketball DNA. When CP3 entered the NBA in 2005, drafted 4th overall by the New Orleans Hornets, the point guard position was still sacred ground. These weren't just basketball players, they were field commanders, chess masters in sneakers. The point guard's job was crystal clear: get everyone else the ball in the perfect spot at the perfect time. And Chris Paul, he was born for this. In his rookie season, Paul averaged 16.1 points and 7.8 assists, but those numbers don't tell the real story. What made Paul special wasn't just what he did. It was how he made everyone around him better. He had this supernatural ability to see plays developing before they happened, like he was watching the game in slow motion while everyone else moved at regular speed. By his 3rd season, Paul was putting up absolutely ridiculous numbers: 21.1 points, 4.0 rebounds, 11.6 assists, and 2.7 steals per game. Those steal numbers weren't just good, they were historically dominant. Paul would go on to lead the league in steals 6 times, a record that still stands today. But here's what made Chris Paul the perfect point guard for that era. He understood that basketball was a symphony, and he was the conductor. Every pass had purpose, every play call had meaning. When Paul stepped on the court, chaos became order. The numbers back this up. During Paul's prime years with the Hornets and early Clippers days, traditional point guards ruled the league. The assist leaders were pure facilitators. The game flowed through point guards who prioritized team success over individual glory. But while Chris Paul was perfecting the art of traditional point guard play, something sinister was brewing in front offices across the NBA: analytics. Around 2010, teams started realizing something that changed basketball forever. 3 points is more than 2 points. Revolutionary stuff, right? But seriously, this simple math equation began dismantling everything Paul represented. Here's the brutal truth. In 2010, the league average for 3-point attempts was just 18.1 per game. Fast forward to 2025, and that number has nearly doubled to 37.6 attempts per game. Every single team in the NBA now attempts at least 31 3-pointers per game. The Boston Celtics, they're launching over 50 per game. What does this mean for point guards like Chris Paul? Everything. Suddenly, having a guy who could thread a perfect pass to the post didn't matter as much when teams realized posting up was inefficient compared to spotting up behind the arc. The beautiful mid-range game that Paul mastered, analytics said it was the worst shot in basketball. The position started evolving, or maybe mutating is a better word. Enter Stephen Curry. Curry didn't just change basketball, he nuked it and rebuilt it in his image. When Golden State won their first championship in 2015, they proved that a point guard could be a nuclear weapon from 3-point range instead of just a facilitator. Suddenly, every team wanted their own Curry. Chris Paul watched his entire profession transform around him. The pure point guard was becoming extinct, replaced by combo guards who could score first and pass second. Players like Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook, and later Luka Doncic represented this new breed. oversized playmakers who prioritized scoring over traditional point guard duties. But here's what made Chris Paul legendary. He refused to become irrelevant. Even as the game changed around him, Paul adapted without losing his identity. During his Houston Rockets years from 2017 to 2019, he partnered with James Harden and helped the team win a franchise record 65 games. That Rockets team came within one game of beating the seemingly invincible Golden State Warriors. Paul proved that traditional point guard skills still mattered, even in an analytics-driven world. His basketball IQ was so high that he could function in any system. When he joined the Phoenix Suns in 2020, he did something magical. He turned a 19-win team into NBA Finals contenders. The 2021 NBA Finals run was Paul's masterpiece. At 36 years old, he averaged 21.8 points and 8.2 assists in the playoffs, leading Phoenix to their first finals appearance since 1993. It was like watching a master artist paint one last masterpiece before the art form disappeared forever. That Suns team won a franchise record 64 games the following season, and Paul became the oldest player ever to record 14 or more assists in a playoff game. He was literally rewriting the aging curve for point guards, but the writing was on the wall. Even Paul's incredible play couldn't stop the position's evolution. Modern point guards like Luka Doncic were averaging 33.9 points per game, numbers that would have been unthinkable for a traditional point guard just a decade earlier. The 2023-24 season with the Golden State Warriors was symbolic in ways that probably hurt Paul's soul. For the first time in his NBA career, on October 29, 2023, Chris Paul came off the bench. His NBA record streak of 1,365 consecutive games was over. It was more than just a personal milestone ending. It was the basketball world acknowledging that even Chris Paul, the point guard himself, couldn't escape Father Time or the changing game. When Paul signed with the San Antonio Spurs for the 2024-25 season, everyone knew this was likely his farewell tour. At 40 years old, he proved he still had magic left, starting all 82 games and averaging 8.8 points and 7.4 assists. On April 13th, 2025, in the season finale against the Toronto Raptors, Paul recorded 15 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals, becoming the first player in NBA history to accumulate 23,000 points with at least 12,000 assists. But those numbers, as impressive as they are, tell a deeper story. Paul passed Jason Kidd for second all-time in both career assists and career steals during the season. He now sits at 12,499 assists and 2,717 steals, trailing only John Stockton in both categories. Then came the moment that basketball purists had been dreading. On July 6, 2025, during an interview with Jamili Hill, Chris Paul was asked the question everyone wanted answered. How much longer would he play? His response was simple, direct, and heartbreaking. At the most a year. You know, I just finished my 20th season, which is a blessing in itself. But here's what makes this announcement even more emotional. Just 2 months earlier, in May 2025, Paul had told Anscape's Mark Spears, "I'm going to keep playing, I think." He talked about evaluating everything at the end of each season, discussing it with his family, his kids having input in the decision. Now, sitting with Jamili Hill, the reality had set in. The point guard had made his choice. This wasn't just Chris Paul announcing his retirement. This was the official death certificate for traditional point guard basketball. When Paul hangs up his jersey after the 2025-26 season, he'll take with him all the knowledge, all the court vision, all the leadership that defined the position for generations. At 40 years old, Paul has become the third oldest player in the NBA behind only LeBron James and PJ Tucker. But unlike LeBron, who's transformed his game to stay relevant, Paul remained true to what a point guard should be until the very end. The rise and fall of the point guard isn't really about statistics or analytics or three-point shooting. It's about the end of basketball poetry. Chris Paul was the last poet in the game that became obsessed with mathematics. When he retires after next season, we'll never see another player quite like him. The game has evolved beyond what he represents, and there's no going back. So treasure this final season of Chris Paul. Watch him conduct his orchestra one last time, because when the point guard finally walks away, he's taking an entire era of basketball with him. If this deep dive into basketball history hit you in the feels like it did me, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories about the legends who shaped the game we love. What other basketball legends do you want us to cover? Let me know in the comments below.